Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla has labeled Atong Ang the Philippines' #1 most wanted in connection with the missing sabungeros case. The death toll from the Binaliu landfill landslide in Cebu City has climbed to 26 as search and rescue operations continue.
A recent survey from social weather stations show a slight decline in hunger incidents among Filipino families to 20.1% in the last quarter of 2025.
First in the news, Tropical Storm Ada continues to move slowly over the Philippine Sea. Its center was last spotted some 370 kilometers east of Surigao City, Surigao del Norte. Ada is forecast to move generally northwestward today through tomorrow, but a further westward shift may result in a possible landfall over eastern Visayas and the Bicol region. For now, signal number 1 is up over several areas across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
For more updates, we have Pag-asa weather specialist Benison Estareja joining us this morning. Good morning, Benison. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Angela, and to all our viewers. As of 4 in the morning, the tropical storm Ada was located at 430 kilometers east of Maasin, southern Leyte. Meron po siyang maximum winds of 65 kilometers per hour and gustiness of up to 80 kilometers per hour. And it's moving north-northwest at slowly. So in the next 1 to 2 days, we're expecting na patuloy pa rin po yung pagkilos niya, pahilagang kanluran. So magkakaroon nga po ito ng close approach over eastern Visayas and Bicol region. At hindi pa rin natin po ni-rule out na magkakaroon ng landfall scenario during this weekend. Meron ding direct effect po, no? Given na ito ay up to 400 kilometers yung radius, we're seeing Bicol region in eastern Visayas as well as northern Caraga region to have gusty conditions or rains with gusty winds and some stormy conditions in the areas such as northern Samar, eastern Samar, and Catanduanes. Yung rainfall din po natin, asahan po 50 to 100 millimeters in some areas of Bicol within the next 24 hours, as well as Samar, Biliran, Leyte, and southern Leyte. And yung pinakamalalakas po ng mga pagulan natin within 24 hours are northern Samar and eastern Samar, which is 100 to 200 millimeters. Ito po yung mga lugar na posibleng magkaroon ng mga pagbaha sa mga low-lying areas at pagguho ng lupa sa mga mountainous areas. And we're also including or amplifying din yung warning natin dito sa may Albay, no? Dahil sa palibot po ng Mount Mayon, meron din pong chance ng lahar kapag po lumakas yung pagulan.
Yung Benison, yung sa Mount Mayon area, no? Of course, area of concern yan, but how much rain are we expecting in terms of volume? May rainfall warning na ba doon?
So far, wala pa naman po, but
Okay.
within 24 hours, that's until tomorrow noon time, 50 to 100 millimeters for Albay. And simula po bukas naman ng tanghali up until Sunday noon, mas maraming ulan po ang ibabagsak po dun sa may Albay. 100 to up to 200 millimeters.
Madami-dami ito, Benison, 200 millimeters.
Apa.
Okay.
Possibility na malusaw na siya along the way? May ganun ba?
Meron pong ganun senaryo, pero hindi siya anytime. We're seeing po kasi in the next 5 days, magpe-prevail pa rin po siya bilang isang bagyo. Nandyan yung chance of weakening po pag-akyat niya dito sa may Bicol region. Once magkaroon ng interaction with the northeast monsoon, and sa paghina niya around early to middle of next week, nandyan din yung chance po na maging low pressure area na lang siya bago lumabas ng PAR.
Gale warning, do we have?
So far po wala naman, pero maalon po siya ngayon over yung mga may signals po natin dito sa may eastern Visayas.
So Benison, safe to say, para reminder lang sa mga mag-weekend goers natin, going to the north, advisable ba na pwede pang bumahay sa north? May chance ba na maganda ang weather?
Kung sa northern and central Luzon naman po, wala namang effect itong bagyong Ada. Meron pa rin tayong northeast monsoon doon at magdadala lang po ng mga light to moderate rains over Cagayan Valley, some areas in Cordillera region at saka Aurora. So wala naman pong problem if, for example, mag-hike sila dito sa Cordillera.
So and then next week, so far, so good, clear tayo?
Yes, for next week, for example, Monday po and Tuesday, may mga ulan pa rin sa Bicol region. Yun yung nearest kay Bagyong Ada. And then other parts naman of our country, improved weather naman.
Okay.
And of course, any other weather systems that we are monitoring outside our Philippine area of responsibility?
For now po, wala pa naman. Yung far east ng Mindanao may mga cloud clusters pero hindi pa low pressure area sa ngayon.
All right, thank you for that. Pag-asa weather specialist Benison Estareja.
Now, Albay is bracing for Tropical Storm Ada as Mayon volcano remains at alert level 3. Governor Noel Rosal warned that the threat of lahar flows could force authorities to evacuate residents within the 10-kilometer danger zone. So far, around 2,000 residents from barangays Masarawag and Maninila in Ginobatan have been evacuated as a precaution. He called for continued support from the national government to provide food, shelter, and aid to affected families. Rosal added that if the alert level rises further, evacuations could affect up to 70,000 residents.
Tiyatakutan talaga natin ngayon yung kung mag-full scale ito ng alert level 4, alert level 5. We have really to stop the school dahil majority ng mga school building natin magagamit yan because you're now talking of about 70,000 individuals or more than 13,000 families.
Alright, so some classes are already suspended doon sa area ng Albay because of this tropical storm Ada. I was actually able to talk to Governor Rosal and yun na nga, giniit naman niya na the LGU is prepared for whatever is going to happen in Albay. And of course, they're also monitoring all the residents that are who are in evacuation centers dahil sabi nga ng PHIVOX na baka if ever tumagal din ito up to 6 months or more or less, diba? So medyo matatagalan talaga yung mga evacuees natin sa evacuation
And lastly,
centers.
before we move up to the next, we have to watch out for the possible lahar flow.
Yes.
Kasi alam naman natin, lahar can change the geography of the land. It could change how yung farming nila is done because yung minerals ng soil namamatay. Look what happened sa Pampanga. 'Di ba nung kay Mount Pinatubo yung lahar niya matindi, ang daming sinira.
The last time nagkaroon ng matinding lahar sa Albay was 2006.
Yes, correct.
And sabi nga ni Governor Rosal, they have learned the lessons already and hopefully nga ay hindi na ulit ito mangyari. Ang only nagiging problem lang nila, of course, yung livelihood ng mga magsasaka, yung mga farmers doon. Of course, until now, yung even if nasa evacuation center sila, bumabalik sila dun sa land nila because yung mga naiwang animals that they need to feed and of course, yung mga pananim nila. No, so it's dangerous. Ina-advise sila na wag gawin yun.
That's right. All right, let's move on. Authorities are stepping up the manhunt for gambling tycoon Charlie Atong Ang, the alleged mastermind behind the missing sabungeros.
Atong Ang has been declared the #1 most wanted in the Philippines with a 10 million peso bounty on his head, courtesy of the Interior Department. Since the Santa Cruz Laguna RTC Branch 26 issued warrants of arrest over the missing sabungeros case, 17 of 18 subjects have been taken into custody. Only Ang is still at large.
Ang aking abiso sa kanya, Atong, mag-surrender ka na, harapin mo ang hukom at doon ka magpaliwanag. Iyong pagtatago ay simbolo ng iyong hindi pagtanggap at pag-iwas sa mga paratang laban sa iyo.
In the afternoon of January 15, operatives of NBI Laguna went to this farm. The property, allegedly owned by an unnamed politician in San Pablo City, was occasionally visited by Ang. But when NBI personnel scored the farm, the gambling tycoon was nowhere to be found. The security guard in the area told News 5 that he only knew Ang from the television reports. But he said he never saw the businessman personally, especially not in this farm. On Wednesday, January 14, or the day the arrest warrant was supposed to be served for the first time, authorities already went to Ang's farm in Santa Cruz and in Lipa, Batangas. Police even went to the Magnates-known address in Pasig City. Ang and 17 others are facing charges of kidnapping with homicide and kidnapping with serious illegal detention. What could make the businessman turn up? The 10 million peso bounty for information on his whereabouts seems like a drop in the bucket. Ang reportedly has much more means and resources than this.
Yung tatapatan niya yung 10 million, mahirap yun eh. Kasi kung tatapatan mo isa, tatapatan mo ang lahat. Wala po siyang nabiling mga investigator, wala siyang nabiling mga piskal, wala siyang nabiling mga huwis. Lahat po yan ay tumupad sa kanilang katungkulan at wala pong nagawa ang mga bilyon-bilyon niyang pera para maiba ang hustisya. Justice will come to Atong Ang. Justice for the 100 missing sabungeros. Justice for all his illegal acts.
But authorities expect the search for Ang to be challenging and even turn treacherous. According to the DILG chief, Atong Ang is, quote, armed and dangerous, having already killed hundreds of people already and with lots of cash to pay for protection.
Si Atong po ay bumibiyahe nang hindi kumukulang ng 20 ang bodyguard lagi. Sanay po yan sa marahas na pagharap sa mga otoridad, sanay po yan sa marahas na paraan para masolusyonan ang kanyang mga problema. So we consider him armed and dangerous. Pero may garantisya po kami na walang EJK. Wala pong extrajudicial killing na plano ang PNP.
The Philippine National Police has already revoked licenses of 6 guns under Ang's name. It has likewise requested the Interpol to place the businessman on red notice to guarantee his arrest in case he goes out of the country. Per the Bureau of Immigration's monitoring, Ang is still in the Philippines. For now, the manhunt is centered in Luzon. Kapatid Arles de Los Santos, we are One News.
Let's clarify all of this. No? Joining us now is Attorney Alan Panolong, National President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Attorney, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Nice to see you, Attorney.
Yes. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat.
Alright.
Thank you also for inviting us.
Attorney, thank you. Baka you could help us understand, no? Kasi a lot of words have been thrown around. State witness, witness protection program. So let's start off with being a state witness. Ano ibig sabihin nito?
Una po sa lahat, yung pong state witness is, this is the person who is party to the commission of the crime, meaning to say, he is one of the accused. So in order for him or her to be admitted as a state witness, there are conditions to be met. So first, hindi po siya yung not the most guilty, meaning to say the least guilty among the accused. So his testimony is that of absolute necessity, meaning to say there is no other direct evidence available in order to convict or to prove the crime. Then secondly, thirdly po is that he or she is testifying for the grave felony. So and there was no prior conviction on his or her part involving a crime which is considered as a moral turpitude, no? So then the testimony can be substantially corroborated. So yun po yung state witness.
Okay.
No? There is other witness who may be admitted under the witness protection program. So ito po yung mga tao na kung saan they are not party to the crime, meaning to say they were not they are not co-accused in the crime. So they just have information or knowledge of the commission of the crime, meaning to say meron po silang nalalaman na doon sa krimen na nangyari.
That's right.
So the same thing involves grave felony, and then there is threat to his person or her person and that of his or her family members up to the second degree of consanguinity, no? So yun po yung kakaibahan. Dalawa po ito, state witness, ito po yung involved sa crime mismo, no? And the other one is just an ordinary or plain witness na kung saan hindi po siya kasama doon sa krimen, but meron po siyang information or knowledge as to the commission of the crime.
Right. At clarify ko lang, Attorney, no, kasi yung word least guilty has been thrown around. When you mean least guilty, one of the least guilty, so pwedeng madami kayong least guilty or yung pinaka least guilty sa lahat?
Pwede kasi yung category ng mga witnesses, for instance, if there are so many witnesses and there are many of them who are least guilty, which is in this case, if you take note, marami pong na-admit as state witness, no? So perhaps they are the least guilty among. Kumbaga yung the degree of participation nila is lesser than that of those principal, really, no, main actors of the
Oo.
crimes. So who are those main actors of the crimes? Ito yung mga principal by direct participation.
Oo.
Sila yung talagang author, nagpasimuno ng krimen.
Oo.
Mm.
So,
So
parang,
these participants could be just, kumbaga, naisama lang to dahil halimbawa, parang kumbaga, naisama lang siya doon sa krimen na yun.
Oo. Pwede daw po kasi mas maiging masabing not the most guilty kesa sa least guilty, kasi maaaring may pagkakataon na least guilty ka at wala ka naman masyadong alam talaga sa krimen. Pero po pwede ikaw yung not most guilty, pero may alam ka dun sa krimen, may involvement ka. Attorney.
Yun na nga po, dalawa po yun di ba? Yung may involvement ka sa krimen, but you are not the most guilty.
Okay, so yung ito pong apat na ito na linked to the flood control controversy na officially admitted as state witness, ito po ay dumaan muna sa korte. Tama po ba? Kasi hindi naman po automatic sila ay maging state witness without the jurisdiction of the court. Ganun po ba yun?
Unang-una po, ang Witness Protection Program is nasa pangangalaga po yan ng Department of Justice. So sila po yung nag-evaluate ng mga witnesses na based on the information they receive and based on the evidence they collected. So mag-a-apply yung isang witness na yan, on the basis thereof, they will evaluate. So once they determine that one or two or more of the witnesses may qualify to be a state witness, then they will inform the court, no? Kasi kung natapos lahat yung proseso, like there is this sworn statement to be executed by those witnesses and the execution of the memorandum of agreement, once all of those are satisfactorily completed, then they will have to inform the court, because these witnesses will have to be discharged from the information. Meaning to say, they will be excluded. Hindi sila kasama doon sa kakasuhan. So the court now will have to evaluate, and if the court sees it practical under consideration and if it's legal under consideration, so it has to admit the application, yes.
Okay.
Pero
Pero,
nagsisimula po talaga yan sa DOJ because administratively, it is the agency of government which is in charge in the enforcement of the Witness Protection Program.
Ayun.
The court
Pero-
merely receives the application.
Opo.
I mean, the witnesses being considered as a state witness by the prosecution.
Ayun. Pero hindi po ibig sabihin na sa WPP ka or Witness Protection Program, may automatic state witness ka na. Wala pong ganun. Hindi
yes.
ganun.
Hindi naman automatic pagpunta mo ng WPP, apply mo is automatically state witness ka na. No, na-undergo po ng proseso.
I'd like to ask also, attorney, for example, let's take into consideration yung kaso or involvement ni Alcantara, no? If for example, kasi state witness siya, so alam natin hindi siya makakasuhan dito sa case na to. But after this case is resolved, let's say may lumitaw na different case but almost of the same type, corruption din, pero hindi na-try or hindi kusan siya state witness, pwede ba siyang makasuhan for that?
That is a very interesting question. Supposing there is a new information,
Yes.
no? Ano nga to?
Lumitaw bigla.
It's totally different from those pending before the courts. My opinion is that since the immunity naman, I believe, no, this is my understanding, the immunity is not an immunity for life. So only for those cases. So supposing there is another cases, so I think that's a different approach.
So in other words, sa case na naka-file, doon lang siya immune. Kasi may mga ibang narinig ako interpretation, parang very similar daw to sa double jeopardy law eh. Pag na-resolve na daw yung case, kahit may lumitaw pa at corruption, baka hindi na daw pwede.
Ang double jeopardy po applies for
Pag
the
may
same cases. For instance, yung isang tao na accused of the crime of murder. So pinatay niya si Juan, no, with intent, no, with the use of firearm, no, and he ensured the death of Juan. Tapos during the trial is the prosecution failed to establish, no, that itong accused is guilty. So once acquitted by the court, hindi na siya pwedeng filean ng another case involving the same
character. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the double jeopardy is not actually sa lahat ng bagay.
Yeah.
Doon lang sa kaso na kung saan
Okay.
yun yung kinakaharap ng accused.
At least malinaw na yun. Oo.
Dun po sa
Yes,
dun sa isapin po ng restitution, yung pagbabalik ng pera, naging matindi po yung debate niyan sa Senado before, no, during the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee between Senator Ping Lacson, if I'm not mistaken, and of course Senator Marcoleta. They were DOJ at the time, si Secretary Rimulya, now Ombudsman, no, regarding dun sa pagsasaoli ng pera ng mga ninakaw. Ano po ba talaga yung dapat doon? Dapat po isoli, di ba po, yung mga nanakaw na pera?
Opo, tama po yun. Kasi unang-una, isa sa mga condition, no, the witness to be admitted as a state witness will have to execute a memorandum of agreement. One of the conditions is for the return of the embezzled asset or wealth, no, illegally obtained by the accused. Otherwise, pag hindi niya sinauli yun, ano po bang habol natin? Because nakalagay din sa batas na once ma-admit siya and ma-discharge siya as an accused, so he will be immune from suits involving those cases na kinakuha niya.
Kinakasangkutan
so,
niya.
Wala na tayong habol. Kaya nga, ang state, no, through the Department of Justice, has to demand from the person applying to be a state witness na ibalik niya yung nakuha niya, nakulimbat niya na pera. Kailangan may balik niya yun. Otherwise, pag na-consider na siya state witness, tapos hindi niya naibalik, na-exonerate siya, natanggal siya, ano pa bang habulin natin?
Hindi mo na mahabol yun.
That is the legal consequence.
Oo. It's a done deal, kumbaga. Tapos na, ano pang mahahabol mo?
Yes.
Oo. Pero dito po kasi naalala ko yung talagang pagtatalo nila, pinipilit po kasi ni Senator Marcoleta, being him also as a lawyer, sinasabi niya, hindi daw po not necessarily kailangan na magsauli. Wala daw dun nakalagay sa batas natin. Yun po yung pinipilit niya at that time. I don't know kung napanood niyo po yun. Oo. Mali po ba yun? Tama?
Po kasi doon sa memorandum, no, to the executive ng the state, no, through the prosecutors and the person applying to be a state witness. Kasama po yung return of the embezzled property because the legal consequence is once that person is admitted as a state witness, he is immune. And ang legal implication is pati yung pera na nakuha niya, which is the subject of the case, is hindi mo na mahahabol.
Pero
so, kailangan i-demand talaga. Kaya nga si Alcantara, if I'm not mistaken, ang promise niya is to return at least 1 billion pesos.
Yes.
And so he was able to return more than 300 million, I think.
Parang
or
ano po,
more so.
parang si Henry Alcantara, ang na-return pa lang daw niya is 181 million.
181.
Si Gerard Opolensya, 80 million. Sally Santos, 20. Robert Bernardo, 35 million. So parang, paano ba yung pagkukwenta nito? Dapat po pala talaga, yung doon sa nabanggit nyo na MOA, dapat yun din talaga tinitignan natin, kung ano yung napagkasundoan doon sa MOA, kung magkano at ano pa yung mga kondisyon para siya ay maging state witness. Paano po ba yung ano ba, kasi parang for me, ang liliit pa po nito eh.
Ano yung basis ng computation?
Compared po dun sa bilyong-bilyong pinag-uusapan natin sa anomalya sa flood control projects.
Ideally po, kung ano yung nabanggit nila na promise na ibabalik nila, dapat matanggap na yun ng gobyerno bago sila maging state witness. Kasi nga po, yun yung sinasabi natin, once they are declared or admitted as a state witness, and legal consequences po yun is immunity from suits and immunity from that crime, no? And yung pong including those property or money that they illegally obtained. So kailangan po talaga is before declaring them or admitting them as a state witness, they have to return.
Okay. Balik ako lang yun, attorney, bago Bago po sila ma-declare a state witness, dapat lahat na ibalik na as promised doon
Opo.
sa memorandum. So parang ang konti naman po nung binalik nila.
Probably, kasi because we are not privy to that.
Oo, yung
we
MOA,
haven't
that's
seen
why we have to look
really
at
the
the
memorandum of agreement. So, baka merong installment or merong
Installment plan.
by tranches ng pagbalik ng pera.
Wow, oo.
Because I understand, baka siguro some of the money were converted into real properties. Kasi
Properties,
pinambili ng
pwede.
properties, pinambili ng bonds, pinambili ng insurance. So baka up for sale yung mga yon. So the proceeds thereof probably would be yun yung ibabalik nila.
Okay.
So speaking of the MOA, no, of course, wala tayong access to it. But usually ba may leeway ang yung nag-apply sa state witness na mag-negotiate? For example, ang declared na nanakaw niya, 400 million. Sabihin niya, soli ko na lang yung 320 million, iwan ko yung 80. You can have my testimony that will put the bigger fish in jail. Tapos hingi ka ng clause na hindi ka, na magiging immune ka further from any suits regarding this issue. Pwede bang mag-negotiate sila ng ganon?
Well, depende po yun, no? It would entirely depend on the strategy of the ones applying. And of course, wala namang masama kung mag-demand sila. But the state, through the prosecution, will meticulously evaluate the application. So, again, siguro the prosecutor would, at the end of the day, consider the interest of the state. So, siguro kung meron mang leeway, hindi naman siya ganun kalaki.
Okay.
So, they can always meet halfway. But it would depend. Kasi this is din parang medyo subjective din kasi depende yun sa the ones evaluating.
That's right.
But there are parameters, no? Obviously, no? There are parameters to be considered. So, kung substantially maibabalik, so I think the state may consider because I think I do believe also that kung nakulimbat mo 400 million, parang mahirap maibalik talaga yung 400 million.
Exacto.
Gumastos ka
No,
na.
no, kasi siyempre lavish yung lifestyles nila eh.
Yeah, oo.
We can never expect that the 400 million will ultimately be returned. But ang isang importante kasi, kumbaga, ang panalo din ng state doon is not only the return of that illegally obtained property, but to ensure the conviction of those accused in
That's
the
true.
commission of the crime.
That's true.
Okay.
So yun po yung bonus doon. Yun talaga yung ultimate objective eh.
Of course.
Kasi the testimony of these state witnesses are very vital to prove the commission of the crime and ultimately to get the conviction of those accused. So
That's
yun
right.
po ang panalo doon ng state. Parang naging bonus yung
Yung pagbabalik.
yung
Pagbabalik.
binalik na
Oo,
properties.
oo,
Kasi
oo.
mahirap talaga maibalik, tingin ko, no?
Oo.
On
Doon
a
daw tayo
practical
sa
side,
big
parang
fish.
hindi mahirap ibalik talaga yun.
All right. Thank you for your time and insights. Hope to have you back on the show. Attorney Alan Panolong, National President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines.
Anytime po. Thank you. Thank you very much sa inyong lahat. Mabuhay po tayong lahat. Magandang umaga po.
Thank you, Attorney.
All right, good morning. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos vowed assistance and accountability for the victims of the Binalio landfill landslide in Cebu City. At least 27 bodies have been recovered from the incident as search and rescue operations continue. Here is the report.
Rescue and search operations continue a week after a landfill collapsed in Barangay Binalio, Cebu City. So far, 26 bodies have been recovered, while 10 individuals remain missing. Most of the recovered bodies have already decomposed, prompting authorities to subject the remains to DNA testing to identify the victims and return them to their families. Bad weather poses a major challenge to the ongoing operations, with authorities closely monitoring the approaching tropical storm Ada.
Once uulan, automatically will stop the operation because it poses a danger, no, sa ating mga responders and rescuers. So we stop the operation for a while umuulan pa dahil baka may pagguho pa ng mga basura, no?
During his visit to Cebu to lead the naming and delivery ceremony of a dual-fuel methanol-powered Kamsarmax bulk carrier in Balamban, President Bongbong Marcos called for a moment of silence for the victims. He also pledged support for the families of the victims and vowed that those responsible for the tragedy would be held accountable.
Please be assured that the government is taking all necessary measures to ensure safety, transparency, accountability, and compassionate assistance. Burial support and other forms of aid are now being directed to those who have been affected by this tragedy.
Cebu Governor Pambari Cuatro expressed her gratitude to President Marcos for his support to the Cebuanos.
I was really touched. No, we didn't expect that. I didn't expect that, but it's a very good gesture from the president. No, it's heartwarming. No, so, parang nakahilakon kay ko, ma'am, when he said that.
Okay, so yun na nga, ito yung landfill na to, it's a tragedy nga dyan sa Binalyo.
Yes, and I think the official count is 27 based sa reports natin. Yeah,
At saka matagal na kasi nirereklamo itong landfill na ito. Sinasabi nga nila na mabaho, may mga fly infestation, water contamination, and we have yet to see yung official report nila kung ano yung pinaka-cause, no, ng pagguho nga nitong landfill na ito. Although, yun nga sinasabi nila yung malambot na lupa, 'di ba, soft soil, and they also attributed it to the September 30 earthquake.
Nahumina daw yung...
Kaya nagkaroon ng mga rock formation. Oo. So,
humina daw yung foundation plus wind factor nandun, yung mga ulan sa
at
past.
saka sobrang taas na. Na parang hindi na makatarungan yung pagpapatong-patong talaga ng basura na at the end of the day, ganun talaga yung mangyayari.
Nakakairita daw sa marami kasi yung mga ganito landfill na avalanche, madali i-predicto kung mangyayari kasi makikita mo pa lang yung hulma niya, dangerous sa perimeter area. Hindi tulad ng mga landslide na lupa, makikita mo pa rin pero hindi mo mapipredict yan Ito makikita mo na na anytime babagsak na
And parang hindi na tayo natuto, di ba? Kasi it happened in Smoky Mountain, tas Payatas.
Ayan,
They've already passed a law, yung ecological, environmental something, I forgot the name, act, right after yung Payatas sa tragedy. And yet, 'di ba, meron pa rin tayong ganito na nangyari. Kaya kailangan talaga tugunan yung yung proper waste disposal. Hindi natin alam paano. Ngayon, nagrereklamo naman yung area kasi 'di ba naka-stop yung operations ng Binalyo landfill. Ngayon, saan nila ilalagay ngayon yung mga basura nila? Meron daw area sila paglalagyan, pero yung area na yun, I forgot lang the name, nagreklamo sila, bakit sa amin itatambak? Baka naman kami naman yung di ba, magkaroon ng problema dito.
Alam ko kasi may mga specific laws din tayo that prohibit incinerator type of the waste disposal because yun naman, pollution sa hangin ang nagiging issue.
Yeah, oo. Tsaka a lot of yung diseases, saan po pwedeng makuha mo dyan? Isipin mo nga, mga fly infestation lang.
I'm talking about incinerator, bawal din.
Sa environment.
So, sa landfill, bawal, incinerator, bawal. Ano yung gagawin natin? We should talk about things like this. Kasi remember, kahit yung Canada noon, di ba, nagpadala ng basura dito. Kasi bawal
ang tagal bago na ibalik sa kanila.
Bawal i-stock sa kanila sa landfill. May specific provision sila sa law nila
That's why yun nga, sabi ko, yung batas na pinasa nila right after the Payatas, hindi naman daw talaga na kumbaga nasusuportahan o na-implement ng maayos yung batas na yun. 'Di ba? Yung proper waste disposal, yung mga segregation. Although marami daw mga blueprint na plano para sa mga landfill or proper segregation ng mga basura sa iba't ibang LGU. But then again, nandun lang sa office, hindi naman talaga nila nauupuan para maayos.
If you go to several cities in the metro, even out of the metro, makakita mo yung segregation trash bins, no? Pero kung titignan mo yung loob ng trash bin, wala naman sumusunod Di ba? So we need more teeth sa batas na ganito. Kasi titignan mo, yung nabubulok, hindi nabubulok, pwede i-recycle, hindi nasusunod yung recyclable, nalalagay yung banana peel doon eh. Dapat sa nabubulok yun. So wala talagang adherence to that program as well, which is malaking bagay sana kung properly segregated yung trash natin.
Yung dito sa nangyari sa Binaliw, we're also looking into, of course, accountability, di ba? Sino ba dapat ang masisi dito sa mga pangyayari na ito, yung operator, etc. Of course, they're going to do an investigation. But before that, ay inuuna muna natin yung search, no?
Still
Search and rescue pa rin ang gusto nila, no, na operation. And according dun sa nakausap natin na sa BFP, if I'm not mistaken, nagtayo daw sila ng parang tent, no, beside the area para doon sa mga kaanak na nag-aantay ng update, no? It's also hard for the rescuers, especially yung weather. Maya't maya umuulan, malambot yung lupa. So, mahirap din for them, diba, dun yung sa ginagawa nilang
operation. I understand, nagkakaroon daw sila ng tetanus shots for the workers also eh. Kasi, diba, madaming bacteria daw doon, yung toxoid ng tetanus, and then may mga metal shards, may mga open wounds na minsan na nakamit daw ng mga workers eh. So, para safe daw sila lahat, nagkaka-vaccine. Okay.
All right. An investigation is now underway following a fire incident at the DPWH Cordillera office in Baguio City. The Bureau of Fire Protection said the fire was reported on Wednesday after a utility worker noticed thick smoke coming from the room. The BFP said the cause of the fire is still being determined. DPWH Cordillera said only around 2 square meters of the storage area were affected, and they are coordinating with authorities for the investigation.
A group of doctors, lawyers, and health advocates filed complaints against former Finance Secretary and now Executive Secretary Ralph Recto and former PhilHealth President and CEO Emmanuel Ledesma Jr. The complaints cite plunder, technical malversation, graft, and grave misconduct stemming from the alleged illegal transfer of 60 billion pesos from PhilHealth to the National Treasury. In a statement, Recto stressed that the Supreme Court has already resolved the issue and that he bears no criminal liability. The Supreme Court had previously ruled that the fund transfer was unlawful.
Oh, ayan. So, yung unang binasa mo kanina dun sa DPWH Cordillera office na nasunog. Of course, this is not the first time na nasunog ang isang DPWH office. Last year, meron tayo sa may bandang Cubao, dito sa Metro Manila, and this time around in Baguio. So, of course, hindi mo rin mawala doon sa isip ng mga tao ang magtaka. 'Di ba? Na iniisa-isa ba ang mga opisina ng DPWH, no? Dahil alam natin ang unang-unang room pa daw na nasunog yung records file sa may finance department, 'di ba? Okay. All right. Right now, okay, doon sa issue naman tayo ng PhilHealth, no, yung pagsasampa ng kaso ng group of doctors. We have now joining us today Attorney Rodel Taton, one of the complainants who filed cases against Executive Secretary Ralph Recto. Good morning, Attorney.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning,
thanks for joining us.
Every Filipino. Magandang umaga po.
Okay, perhaps can you tell us po kung ano po ba yung kaso na sinampa natin laban kay Sec Recto?
We are actually a group of health advocates.
Yes.
Most of the complainants are Ilonggo medical doctors and 3 of us lawyers in this complaint against Executive Secretary Recto and also former CEO and President of the PhilHealth Ledesma. We filed a case for technical malversation, also for graft and corruption, and also plunder, as well as grave misconduct for public officials like them.
Okay, so how confident are you and of course the other members of the group that filed this case na the decision will be favorable to you? Kasi of course, no, yung SC, no, the Supreme Court has already said there's no criminal liability on the part of Senator or Secretary Recto because he is presumed acted in good faith.
I think we have to be clear with that decision of the Supreme Court, because the issue in that decision of the Supreme Court is on the constitutionality of the provision of the General Appropriations Act and also the circular of the Department of Finance. And if it was an or obiter dictum that, or an opinion simply, that there is no criminal liability, but take note that this is not a criminal case, no, that was filed before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is not a trier of facts, no, and we have to remember that certiorari and other questions there, but it was not a criminal case. This one that we filed is a criminal case against now Executive Secretary Recto, and the allegations here are clearly criminal in nature. That's why we filed it before the ombudsman, which has jurisdiction over the matter for a public official like them.
Okay. And of course, ano po ba yung nakikita natin dito na, of course, you believe na itong 60 billion peso fund transfer na to, pupwede to sa, yun nga po, sa plunder and malversation? Because some would say, yung mga legal luminaries are saying na, ako, ang hirap kapag plunder ang isinasampa, ang hirap patunayan.
Ang pinaka main filing namin dito, number one, well, let's start maybe on the technical malversation. The technical malversation, the basic elements of which would simply be that there is public officer like them, and there is accountability on the public funds, on the use of public funds, and there is use of these funds, no, for appropriations, not its exact appropriation, such that in this case the use of PhilHealth funds, or the excess funds, or the reserve funds of PhilHealth are supposed to be used for investment or high interest investments, or maximization of the benefits of the members of PhilHealth, or the reduction of the contribution of the PhilHealth members. Pero what happened was it was returned to the National Treasury for the use of unprogrammed appropriations, which we do not know. It would be for flood control or others. No? But what we are trying to say here is the issue is greatly for the PhilHealth and the universal health care. One of the provisions that we are asking is in relation to the use of the excess funds of the under the Universal Health Care Act, which says that it should not be returned to the National Treasury. And even the Supreme Court said that there was this voiding, no? They mentioned that the issuance or the circular was void because the circular cannot amend a law.
How about, attorney, yung issue ng pagbabalik ng pera, no? Kasi it's been talked about na supposedly yung 60 billion na yan, nung binalik daw sa PhilHealth, it was done through budgeting. So it's presumed na galing sa bagong collections ng government yan, and hindi naman directly actually yung 60 billion mismo na nakuha ang binalik. So a lot of people are questioning that. Ano ang tugon nyo dito, attorney?
Exactly, kasi ang mga mamayang Pilipino na naman, no, ang gagastos para dito. Kasi kung magagaling ito sa National Treasury, which is appropriate naman na dapat ibalik kasi ginastos naman talaga ng National Treasury to the prejudice of the PhilHealth members. And at the same time, that's why we are also including graft and corruption here, because the prejudice here is also not only on the Filipino people, but the government of the Republic of the Philippines, as well as the ordinary Filipino taxpayers like us and those who are even in the far-flung areas of the country.
Attorney, para maintindihan ng viewers natin, so dapat ba ang ginawa dito, ang pagbabalik is regardless sa budget, no? Ibabalik siya kahit wala pang pinasa na budget because merely returned funds lang dapat ito.
Kasi ang kinuhang reserved funds ng PhilHealth ay dapat para sa PhilHealth po yun at sa mga miyembro niya na dapat gamitin sa tatlong pamamaraan na sinabi ko kanina, no? Sa investment, maximization, or reduction, no, ng mga contributions. Kasi binalik ito sa National Treasury, so dapat naman ibalik ito sa miyembro kasi ang mga miyembro buwan-buwan ay nagde-deposit or nagbabayad ng contribution, and marami sa ating mga kababayan na nagkakasakit, and kanina lang may nag-message sa akin na out of 400,000 na bill, ang na-shoulder lang ng PhilHealth is 69,000, which could have been used to maximize the benefits of PhilHealth if it was properly used for the PhilHealth members themselves.
Yeah. Attorney, regarding sa case naman kay Secretary Recton, I'd like to understand it a little bit more. And so siguro our viewers, are you saying regardless of good faith or bad faith, may mali siyang ginawa technically? So is that the premise of the case? Or are you assuming na everything that he did was in bad faith?
There is, what I should say is, there is gross inexcusable negligence.
Okay.
No, so hindi sapat ang sabihin natin na bad faith or good faith kasi dito is the fact that dinisregard niya ang law itself, no, the PhilHealth law, the Universal Healthcare law, or even the syntax law. These are clearly violations or gross inexcusable negligence kasi ang sinasabi nga natin lagi, ang ordinaryong Pilipino sinasabi natin na the law is harsh but it is the law,
Yes,
di ba?
that's right.
And dapat bilang nasa pwesto ka, dapat ikaw mismo ang nakakaalam na bawal 'yon sa batas natin, no? And we are saying here, halimbawa, kasi ang damage done is also against the government, and also ang sinasabi natin dito ay halimbawa sa plunder. Kasi ang 60 billion pesos na ito na ibinalik sa treasury, kung ininvest ito, no, in an ordinary investment, no, ng PhilHealth, it could have gained, sabi natin, 1% every year. So it is supposed to be 600 million pesos para sa miyembro ng PhilHealth. And sa ating batas, ang threshold is 50 million to qualify for plunder. And I think here, makikita natin na kung in-invest itong 60 billion pesos properly, it should be gaining 600 million pesos for the benefits of its members. And I think simple lang naman yan. Ang kawawa at ang natapakan dito ay ang mga miyembro ng PhilHealth at ang mga miyembro ng sambayan ng Pilipino na recipient ng Universal Healthcare.
Okay, so this is not the first time na nagkaroon po ng kaso final with this kind of case po kila Secretary Recto. I believe it's the Save the Philippines Coalition who first filed the case last December. Hindi niyo po ba naisip na kumbaga parang mag-merge na lang kayong dalawa o consolidate instead of filing new cases, a separate case?
We are not in any relationship. We don't know them, and at the same time, we have read somewhere in social media also some portions of the complaint, and we believe that this one is has been properly done, I think, and the elements are very clear. No, I cannot judge on their complaint. At the same time, yung sa amin, I think you can only speak for this. And ang sinasabi ko nga dito, the complainants here are doctors, medical doctors.
Yeah.
Actually, mga matatanda na ang kasama ko dito ng mga medical doctors and na mga Ilonggo doctors actually, na araw-araw nakikita nila ang mga pasyente. Araw-araw silang hinihinga ng tulong or reduction ng mga payments para sa kanilang professional fees. And araw-araw natin nakikita ang mga hospital, ang mga pila, no, every day that many Filipinos deserve a better healthcare system, a better hospital system, a better management of the funds of the public directed for public health. And I think kasama naman namin sila, kasama naman natin dito ang sambayan ng Pilipino para sa laban na ito. And I think if there was a plunder complaint before and this one now, and it should not deter any others to file this, because we know that public funds are involved and public interest is highly involved in this case.
All right, we will continue to get in touch with you regarding the development of this case. For the meantime, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras, Attorney Rodel Taton. Good morning.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. House lawmakers kicked off their first hearing of 2026 by addressing climate change, citing the impact of 23 cyclones last year that affected over 20 million Filipinos. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza reports.
House lawmakers conducted its first hearing of 2026 as they tackled issues on climate change. After 23 cyclones hit the country last 2025, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources recorded that over 20 million Filipinos were affected. Hence, the need for risk assessment and programs for data and early warning of such calamities. These gaps can be aided through the Barbados Implementation Modalities, or BIM, under the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage, or FRLD, hosted by the Philippines. BIM are operational rules and procedures that was set to help vulnerable countries recover from climate-caused disasters. DENR Finance Secretary Analisa Revueltate mentioned that cross-border discussions were made to improve operations.
That's also an opportunity for us to highlight our initiatives and also to learn lessons from the other countries on how we can improve our work on loss and damage.
$250 million will be allotted to the recovery of provinces and other areas severely affected by natural encounters. This includes places like Cebu, which was hit by typhoons and earthquakes in the past year. However, this funding is not only limited to calamity victims, as indigenous peoples are also considered. Around $5 to $20 million can be requested in this matter.
Madam Chair, really our challenge is the lack of or limited data that we have. No? The proposal kasi, yung strength of the proposal really depend on how robust the data. Kailangan natin ma-justify na these are the vulnerabilities, ito yung kanilang exposures, ito yung kanilang risk, ito ganito karami, yung ganun. So,
Aksyon Klima Pilipinas National Coordinator John Leo Algo supported this recovery. He looks into the international panel discussions among member countries for the cause.
They would also discuss a proposal for a potential source of technical support for countries applying for the bid. I believe that was also sort of raised earlier by during the inquiries. They will call it a country support system.
Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
About 1 in 5 Filipino families experienced involuntary hunger in the last few months of 2025, according to a social weather station survey. The poll conducted from November 24 to 30 found that 20.1% of respondents went hungry at least once in the past 3 months, slightly down from 22% in September. The latest hunger rate includes 15.6% who experienced moderate hunger, going hungry once or a few times, and 4.5% who suffered severe hunger, going hungry often or always. Mindanao recorded the highest hunger rate at 26.7%, followed by the Visayas and Metro Manila at 20.3% rather, and the rest of Luzon at 16.7%.
Medyo hungry to kasi yung term involuntary means daw wala talaga silang choice. Walang laban na anong pipiliin na kakainin, either lack of funds, lack of access to clean food, and year in and year out nagiging issue to until now we can't resolve it. And what makes it worse is nakita mo sa TV yung mga pinag-uusapan pera, kotse,
billions of pesos.
And yet you have a lot of people hungry.
And what's bothering also or bothersome is yung lagi doon palagi sa Mindanao yung pinakamataas yung hunger rate. 'Di ba? Lagi doon, ibig sabihin yung mga tulong and whatever it is that we were doing through DSWD hindi nakakadating doon. Tsaka and when in fact na doon, 'di ba, you have access to land, yung farming, yung mga vegetables, etc. Still naglalag pa rin sila ng
I think nagiging problem kasi sa Mindanao is not all of them are progressive like Davao City and Zamboanga City. May mga areas that are unstable in terms of insurgency. So development is medyo stymied, 'di ba? Medyo stagnant because walang gusto talaga mag-invest totally in development until ma-resolve yung issues with of course yung supposedly yung rebels and insurgency.
Okay, by Monday, don't forget, Monday is 19, no? Tama ba?
Ay, oo.
Oo, the assumption of Senate Blue Ribbon Committee on the investigation in aid of legislation.
Gusto makita ng lahat,
Anomalous Flood Control Project.
May nagjo-joke daw kung matetesting daw ni Senator Amy yung peluka ni Senator Ping
Or papasok na ba si Senator Bato de la Rosa? Diba? Parang ang tagal na niyang wala sa Senado. And we all know naman na kahit wala ka sa Senado, sumusweldo ka pa rin.
Sumusweldo ka pa rin.
Buti pa siya. Sana all, sabi daw.
Pero if one thing is certain, si Senator Bato ay walang peluka. Diba? Sabi, iti-testing daw kay Senator Ping
That is a fact.
That is a
opinion.
Oo. Wala lang. Lighter moments lang naman. Alright, quote for the day. The moment you want to quit. Again, the moment you want to quit is usually the moment right before the miracle happens. And that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow, I'm Angela, or on Monday, I'm Angela Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro, the third kapatid. We are One News.
All sides, all the time.